Okay, so Rachel Summers' life is extensive, it's exhausting, it's a whole lot. And we're going to talk about all of it. So I'm not sure how long this episode will end up being, but I do know it's going to take a whole lot of editing, so I really hope you enjoy it. So let's discuss Marvel Comics' most stressed out telepath. Before I get started, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any other episode. So, Rachel Summers first appeared in Marvel Comics in X-Men number 141 in October of 1980. She was created by Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and John Romita Sr. In the absolutely cursed alternate future of Earth 811, everything basically goes off the rails after Senator Robert Kelly gets assassinated by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Humanity responds in the most dramatic way possible. Anti-mutant panic hits maximum level, an anti-mutant president gets elected, and giant mutant-hating sentinels are given the keys to the country, because apparently that sounded like a good idea. Rachel Summers, the daughter of mutant power couple Scott Summers, who is Cyclops, and Jean Grey, who is Phoenix, grows up at Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Her childhood was surprisingly wholesome, considering the apocalypse was waiting around every corner. She becomes best friends with Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue Richards of the Fantastic Four. You may have heard of them. And life almost feels normal. That doesn't last. Then puberty arrives, and with it, Rachel's telepathic powers. Because mutant puberty is already awkward enough without suddenly hearing everyone's thoughts. She joins the New Mutants to train, but before anyone can enjoy the superhero school experience, the Sentinels decide that they've found the perfect solution to the mutant problem: overthrow the US government, hunt down basically every mutant in North America, and then move on to superpowered humans who aren't even mutants. You know, classic evil robot overachiever behavior. Things somehow get even worse. Rachel's mother dies in a nuclear explosion caused by Jason Wingard, who is Mastermind. The government officially outlaws mutants, and the military storms Xavier School, and Rachel ends up one of the survivors. Unfortunately, surviving isn't exactly a win. She's captured by the government, drugged so her powers won't work, and handed over to Rory Campbell, better known as Ahab, a sadistic cyborg whose hobbies include torture, brainwash, and generally being the worst person imaginable. After months of physical and psychological abuse, Rachel is broken down and turned into one of Ahab's mutant tracking hounds. So basically, she sniffs out other mutants. They even tattoo her face so everyone knows she's been forced into serving the regime. Subtlety was not exactly their thing. Rachel is haunted by the deaths of her parents, her friends, and pretty much everyone she's ever cared about. As a hound, she's telepathically linked to the mutants she tracks, meaning she literally experiences their fear and death alongside them, as if the trauma meter wasn't already shattered. Ironically, Ahab's cruelty ends up being his own downfall. During one particularly vicious torture session, the sheer pain helps Rachel break through her conditioning. She immediately turns on Ahab, attacks him, and leaves him permanently scarred. And let's be real, it was deserved. Since she's no longer a useful brainwashed weapon, Rachel is dumped into the South Bronx Mutant Containment Facility with the surviving X-Men. There, they hatch one last desperate plan: change history itself. Super easy. Rachel reunites with Franklin Richards, and after surviving the literal end of the world together, the two finally fall in love. Because if there's ever a time to confess your feelings, it's probably best to do it while imprisoned in a mutant concentration camp planning time travel. Using her immense telepathic abilities, Rachel sends the mind of the adult Kate Pryde back into her younger self, Kitty Pryde, just before Kelly's assassination, hoping to stop everything before it starts. What was the catch, you ask? Neither Rachel nor Kate realizes that they've accidentally connected to an entirely different timeline, Earth 616. So even though Kate successfully prevents Kelly's assassination, Rachel's own nightmare future stays exactly the same, which is like, oops. While Kate is in the past, the remaining X-Men launch one final assault against the Sentinels. It goes about as well as you'd expect. One by one, they're killed, including Franklin. Since Rachel is physically linked to him when he dies, she experiences his death firsthand, because this timeline has a very strict no emotional recovery policy. Trying to understand why history did not change, Rachel projects her astral form into the past as well, landing in Earth 616. Floating over New York in a deep meditative state, she catches the attention of the Phoenix Force, the ridiculously powerful cosmic entity that once bonded with Earth 616 Jean Grey. The Phoenix Force is immediately fascinated by Rachel, who is basically Jean Grey's alternate universe daughter carrying enough trauma to qualify as a natural disaster. After reading Rachel's mind and witnessing everything she survived, the Phoenix essentially goes, "Oh yeah, I'm adopting this one," and sends part of itself back to Earth 811 with her. Meanwhile, Kate encounters the Phoenix Force after Rachel collapses from the strain of astral time travel. Kate strikes a deal. If the Phoenix boosts Rachel's powers enough, Rachel can physically travel back through time instead of just sending her mind. The Phoenix agrees. The next day, completely unaware this cosmic bargain even happened, Rachel joins Kate on what can only be described as the most X-Men mission imaginable. Break into the Project Nimrod lab, sabotage the construction of a terrifying new Sentinel, and plant a nuclear bomb. As the bomb counts down, Kate signals the Phoenix Force to send Rachel into the past. At the exact worst possible moment, the Nimrod Sentinels blast Kate, leaves her for dead, and then decides to chase Rachel through time because, I don't know if you know, but killer robots can also multitask. Rachel successfully arrives in the present-day Earth 616, where she meets a kind young man named Nicholas Damiano, who offers her shelter despite her looking like she just escaped from the world's worst dystopian future, which, to be fair, she did. Unfortunately, peace lasts about 5 minutes. Celine Gallio, the psychic vampire and one of the Hellfire's Club's most dangerous members, discovers Rachel and decides she'd make a fantastic new servant. While hunting Rachel down, Celine comes across Nicholas instead and just murks him without hesitation. Rachel learns what happens and immediately swears revenge, which is fair. For a while, the dormant Phoenix Force suppresses Rachel's memories of her horrific future to keep her from completely falling apart. Eventually, though, those memories begin resurfacing, and Rachel is invited to attend Professor Charles Xavier's school on Earth 616, finally getting a chance at the life that was stolen from her. Hoping fate doesn't go and try to ruin things again, but spoiler alert, it does. Rachel is already one of the most powerful telepaths and telekinetics around, but when she's bonded to the Phoenix Force, yeah, at that point the phrase overpowered packs its bags and leaves the building. As Phoenix, Rachel's powers are basically limited by two things: her imagination and how much she really wants to do something. She can manipulate matter on an atomic or even universal scale. She can create and control pretty much any type of energy in ridiculous amounts. She can absorb energy from things as massive as a supernova and bend time and space, rip open portals for instant travel across the universe, and crank her physical strength up to levels that are basically impossible to measure. In short, she's less of a superhero and more of a walking cosmic terms and conditions apply. Outside of all the reality warping nonsense, Rachel is also surprisingly practical. She knows how to fight with a sword, picks locks, repairs vehicles, and use advanced weapons and technology, because surviving a dystopian future gives you a very well-rounded resume. Unfortunately, that dystopian future absolutely sucks. So remember when I said that Franklin Richard died? Well, don't worry, he comes back, because the universe apparently enjoys kicking Rachel specifically. Later, Franklin's astral spirit returns, desperately trying to drain the life force from both Rachel and his younger Earth 616 counterpart just to continue existing. Thankfully, Franklin ultimately comes to terms with his own death, stops fighting reality, and peacefully lets himself fade away. Like I said, the Earth enjoys kicking Rachel specifically. Before any of that happened, Rachel originally trained with the New Mutants back in Earth 811, learning to control her powers before Ahab forcibly turned her into one of his hounds, right? We remember that. After escaping the nightmare and arriving on Earth 616, she finally gets to choose her own path, joining the X-Men before later serving with the Extreme Sanction Executive, which is the XSE, Excalibur, and eventually the Starjammers. But do not worry, we will get into all of it. During her time with Excalibur, Rachel and Kitty Pryde become roommates and best friends, which is honestly one of the very few healthy relationships in Rachel's entire life. Naturally, things do not stay peaceful for long. While attending Xavier's school, Rachel learns that Jean Grey supposedly died. Already devastated, she later discovers the truth is somehow even weirder than the rumor. The Jean who died wasn't Jean at all. It was a Phoenix created duplicate. The real Jean had been hidden away in suspended animation, while the duplicate eventually became corrupted by Phoenix's immense power, destroyed an entire galaxy by consuming its sun, killed billions of sentient beings, and finally ended the catastrophe by destroying itself. But this is the X-Men, and nobody gets to have a simple death. After officially joining the X-Men, Rachel finally meets Earth 616 Cyclops and immediately has an existential crisis. Scott is married to Madeline Pryor, who is secretly a clone of Jean Grey, and she's pregnant with a son. Rachel realizes that if Scott's future goes this direction, then she'll never actually be born in this universe. Deciding that conversation would be way too awkward, Rachel keeps the fact that she's Scott and Jean's daughter completely to herself. Later, Rachel visits the home of Jean Grey's parents and discovers a hollow empathic crystal containing Jean's personality. Refusing to believe the Phoenix legacy is nothing but destruction, Rachel claims both the Phoenix name and its power as her own birthright. She wants to redeem everything the Phoenix represents while making up for the terrible things she was forced to do as one of Ahab's hounds. The Phoenix Force basically hears this speech and says, "You know what? Fair enough." It awakens fully inside Rachel, giving her direct access to its incredible cosmic power. The X-Men are understandably a little nervous when Rachel suddenly shows up calling herself Phoenix and glowing with universe-breaking levels of energy, but they ultimately trust her. Around this time, she also meets baby Nathan Summers and strengthens the psychic bond between them to help keep him safe. This is something I've always liked. When she first meets baby Nathan, she immediately says, "That's my brother." And I think that's adorable. Then things somehow escalate into fighting the Beyonder because, like I said at the beginning of the episode, Rachel is Marvel's most stressed out telepath. Facing an opponent who is nearly omnipotent, Rachel makes an incredibly questionable decision. Without asking permission, she steals the life force of every member of the X-Men to fuel the Macron crystal, hoping to literally reboot reality and erase the Beyonder from existence. It was not her best moment. Fortunately, Rachel realizes that having limitless power comes with limitless responsibility before it's too late. She abandons the plan, returns everyone's life force, and instead helps gather Earth's heroes who ultimately defeat the Beyonder without rebooting existence. The downside, the X-Men are understandably furious that Rachel hijacked their souls without asking. Already isolated from her teammates, Rachel later attempts to execute Selene for everything she's done, because why not? Wolverine has no choice but to stop her, using lethal force that leaves Rachel critically injured. While recovering and desperately looking for someone she can trust, Rachel unfortunately crosses paths with Spiral. This goes about as well as you can expect, because if you know anything about Spiral, you know she is just nothing but chaos. Spiral tricks Rachel into following her back to Mojo World, where she's healed, only so Mojo can immediately enslave her. Because, if you didn't know, Mojo subscribes to the Finders Keepers philosophy. Luckily, Roma was paying attention. Knowing the powerful sorcerer Necrom was becoming a threat, Roma secretly sends Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde a shared dream about Rachel. The dream reawakens their psychic connection, allowing Rachel to throw off Mojo's mind control and finally escape. She arrives in London with approximately 0 seconds to relax before she is chased by Mojo's terrifying werewolves. Basically, they're werewolves if someone designed them after watching way too many horror movies, not just your average amount of horror movies. And Gatecrasher's bizarre mercenary team, the TechNet, who were trying to recruit Captain Britain and Megan into Roma's coming battle. After all the chaos settles, Rachel, Nightcrawler, Kitty, Captain Britain, and Megan defeat everyone trying to kill or kidnap them. Looking around at the group, someone basically says, "Well, I guess we're a team now." And just like that, Excalibur was born, which for Rachel is honestly one of the first times in a long time that joining a new team didn't immediately ruin her life. Give it time though. This is still an X-Men comic. Rachel suddenly hears psychic cries from her little brother, Nathan Summers, and immediately drops everything to fly to New York. Turns out Nathan is about to be sacrificed as part of a wonderfully normal X-Men plot involving demons trying to permanently fuse Limbo, or Otherworld because comic dimensions love having multiple names, from Earth. With Earth, I should say. Naturally, Excalibur rushes in right behind her, and after teaming up with a whole bunch of other mutants and superheroes, they stop the invasion, save Nathan, and prevent Earth from becoming Hell's newest vacation destination. As if it wasn't enough emotional whiplash, Rachel also learns some incredible news. Jean Grey is actually alive. The real Jean had been rescued from the suspended animation the Phoenix Force left her in years earlier. So Rachel goes from, my mom's dead, to, wait, mom's alive? In the span of like one crossover. Because this is the X-Men, where death is just more of a scheduling conflict. Not long after, Rachel's powers accidentally interact with the mysterious Widget, who isn't actually a random floating robot at all. Widget turns out to be the spirit of Rachel's Earth 811 best friend, Kate Pryde, somehow merged with a robotic body. Comics, everyone. This bizarre interaction launches Excalibur on an exhausting cross-time caper, sending them bouncing through one alternate reality after another. Basically, imagine the multiverse deciding to put the team on the world's least relaxing road trip. Eventually, they make it home, only for Galactus to show up, because apparently Rachel wasn't busy enough. Galactus decides the Phoenix Force is simply too dangerous to exist and prepares to eliminate the problem. Rachel actually surrenders peacefully, but when Galactus tries to drain the Phoenix's energy, something goes horribly wrong. The universe itself starts dying. Turns out the Phoenix Force is so deeply connected to all living things that removing it is basically like unplugging existence from the wall. Galactus, who literally eats planets for a living, looks at the situation and goes, you know what? Never mind. He lets Rachel go because even he isn't interested in accidentally ending reality. During all of this chaos, Rachel finally tells Earth 616's Scott Summers and Jean Grey the truth. Scott handles it surprisingly well. Jean needs a minute. Which is understandable, because learning you have a time-traveling adult daughter with enough trauma to fill several psychology textbooks isn't exactly an everyday conversation. Rachel later discovers that the Phoenix Force has been suppressing and scrambling her memories all along, trying to protect her mind from the horrors she's endured. Realizing she can't properly heal until she remembers everything, Rachel forces the Phoenix into a dormant state so her mind can recover naturally. Unfortunately, before that process can finish, the sorcerer Necrom decides he'd really like to steal the Phoenix Force for himself. This goes about as well as you can expect. Necrom absorbs far more power than his body can actually contain and literally explodes from magical overload, leaving Rachel critically injured. The Phoenix Force, deciding Rachel needs a break for once in her life, temporarily takes over her body and flies off into space so she can heal in peace. Once Rachel recovers, she and Excalibur return to her original home reality, which is Earth 811, for one final showdown with Ahab. This time, instead of just beating the bad guy, Rachel fixes the actual source of the problem. Using her powers, she rewrites the Sentinels' programming so they are dedicated to preserving all life, including mutants, instead of exterminating them. And just like that, the Sentinel genocidal reign finally comes to an end. And really, though, changing one line of robot programming would have saved everyone a lot of trouble years ago. Then Captain Britain somehow gets lost in the time stream because that's something people do now. Since Rachel is a walking temporal anomaly, Brian keeps trying to swap bodies with her to escape. Rachel repeatedly fights him off, but doesn't tell the rest of Excalibur because even she knows that explanation sounds crazy. For once, Rachel actually gets to experience something genuinely happy. Scott and Jean get married. Scott has fully accepted Rachel as his daughter. It's one of the happiest moments of her entire life, which naturally means tragedy is immediately around the corner. Still burdened by guilt over everything that's happened, Rachel later sacrifices herself by trading places with Captain Britain inside the time stream. Time travel immediately responds by saying, "Cool, let's make it even weirder." Instead of one Rachel, there's suddenly two Rachels. One Rachel is flung into the 37th century, where she becomes a wandering mystic known as Mother Ascani. She gathers followers called Clan Ascani, Ascani meaning outsider, who dedicated themselves to protecting mutant kind and using time travel or chronoskimming to create a better future. Rachel eventually grows old, leading the clan in reality 4935, becoming a legendary figure. The other Rachel lands in reality 805110, a place called the Borderline, where she's captured by the exiled criminal Gaunt. Thankfully, an adult Nathan Summers, better known as Cable, hears Rachel's psychic cries for help, tracks her down, beats Gaunt, rescues her, and brings her back home to Earth 616. Back on Earth, Rachel discovers something very surprising. The Phoenix Force is gone. Without it, she decided to retire from superhero life for a while and attend college. But let's be honest, after everything she survived, homework probably felt like relaxing. Her retirement lasts about 5 minutes. Rachel soon helps Cable defeat the Dark Sisterhood and their leader, Finality. Then, mutant trafficker Elias Bogan kidnaps Rachel and uses her as his own personal telepathic slave, forcing her to help enslave other mutants until the X-Men rescue her. Because the universe looked at Rachel trying to have a normal life and collectively said, nope. After returning to the X-Men, Rachel adopts the codename Marvel Girl and officially starts using the surname Grey. The name serves two purposes. First, it's Rachel's way of honoring Jean Grey after she died in battle. Oh, she died in battle, just so you guys know. Second, it's also a very passive-aggressive way of letting Scott Summers know she is not impressed by his new relationship with former villain Emma Frost. Family drama never dies. Also, I think Emma was his best relationship. Rachel later joins Storm's Extreme Sanctions Executive, which is the XSE, where one of the biggest threats is the Fury, a terrifying symbiote killing machine recreated by Jamie Braddock, who is Captain Britain's wildly unstable brother. During the fight, Rachel suddenly realizes that she can once again tap into the Phoenix Force. With her cosmic powers restored, she unleashed the Phoenix's powers and destroyed the Fury, proving no matter how many times the Phoenix seems to leave her, it somehow always finds its way back. Because at this point, Rachel and the Phoenix Force have a comic book equivalent of an on-again, off-again relationship that neither one can seem to quit. Rachel eventually gets one of the most satisfying rematches of her life while working undercover with Emma Frost to infiltrate the Hellfire Club and rescue their teammate Sage, the psychic vampire who's been making Rachel's life miserable for years. Yeah, Rachel finally beats her. It's been a long time coming. After the mission, Emma introduces Rachel to Earth 616's John and Elaine Grey, Jean Grey's parents, and technically Rachel's grandparents, kind of. Despite the whole I'm your granddaughter from an alternate future that may or may not happen situation, John and Elaine do not hesitate. They welcome Rachel into the family almost immediately. For once, things are actually nice. The universe notices this and immediately corrects that mistake. The Shi'ar Empire has spent years terrified that anyone related to Jean Grey might become another Phoenix host, so they come up with a completely reasonable solution. Murder the entire Grey bloodline. During a Grey family reunion, the Shi'ar Death Commandos launch a surprise attack. Rachel and the X-Men fight back, but they cannot stop the massacre. Every member of the Grey family is slaughtered. Rachel is left devastated, consumed with guilt, and furious at the Shi'ar. As if murdering her family wasn't enough, the Death Commandos permanently brand the Phoenix emblem into Rachel's back. It wasn't just a tattoo. It's a genetic tracking marker that lets the Shi'ar locate her wherever she goes. They basically air-tagged her with space racism. Later, when the Death Commandos attack Rachel again, she has every right to kill them. Instead, she doesn't. Remembering what the Grey family stood for, Rachel chooses mercy over revenge. It's one of the biggest signs that she's finally moving beyond the anger that's defined so much of her life. I understand that. I get it. But you should have taken him out. Just my opinion. She also starts going into counseling. After everything she's been through, that's probably one of the most healthiest decisions anyone in the X-Men has ever made. Before long, Professor Xavier recruits Rachel for another mission that's somehow even less relaxing. Cyclops' long-lost brother, Gabriel Summers, better known as Vulcan, has completely lost his mind and is heading into Shi'ar space with plans to conquer or destroy the Empire. Naturally, the X-Men have to chase him into space. On the trip, they encounter Corvus Rookshire, a Shi'ar warrior who's been ordered to kill Rachel. But what is the catch? Because it can't be that simple. If he refuses, the bomb implanted in his brain explodes. Talk about a bad employee benefits package, right? Corvus also happens to be the descended from a previous Phoenix host and carries the blade of the Phoenix, an enormous sword infused with a fragment of the Phoenix Force itself. When Corvus attacks Rachel, something unexpected happens. Instead of one of them winning, the Phoenix Force physically links them together, giving each of them an intimate look into the other's soul. Needless to say, the fight ends pretty quickly after that. Soon, the X-Men team up with the Starjammers, the galaxy's favorite band of space pirates, to rescue the imprisoned Empress Lilandra. Unfortunately, things immediately spiral out of control. Vulcan marries Lilandra's sister, the wonderfully untrustworthy Deathbird, murders her brother, Emperor Deken, and declares himself ruler of the Shi'ar Empire. Because if you're going to stage a coup, apparently you might as well make it as dramatic as possible. The next battle is even worse. Vulcan kills his own father, Christopher Summers, who is Corsair, gravely injures Professor Xavier, and sends much of the X-Men back to Earth. Rachel has had enough. Along with Havoc, Polaris, and Corvus, she leaves the X-Men and officially joins the Starjammers, promising to continue fighting Vulcan's dictatorship across the galaxy. During their adventures, Rachel and Corvus grow close, and the friendship actually turns romantic. Unfortunately, Rachel realizes their connection is not entirely natural. The Phoenix Force has been nudging their relationship from the beginning. Rachel decides that's incredibly awkward and ends the romance. The Starjammers eventually find themselves forced into an uneasy alliance with Vulcan when an even greater threat appears, the Skyar Tal, an alien race seeking revenge against the Shi'ar Empire for ancient atrocities committed against their people. After defeating the Skyar Tal together, Vulcan immediately repays everyone's cooperation by betraying the Starjammers, imprisoning nearly all of them on an underwater prison world, which, that's about right. Only Rachel, Corvus, and Lilandra escape capture. While trying to rescue the others, Rachel befriends fellow Starjammer Kree and repeatedly clashes with the Shi'ar Praetorians, who are apparently so committed to stopping the rebels that they destroy an entire planet, killing billions of people just to eliminate the Starjammers. State politics are intense. Then, right in the middle of breaking into the underwater prison, the Phoenix Force decides suddenly it's done. Without warning, it leaves Rachel completely. It even abandons Corvus's Phoenix-powered sword before flying off into space for reasons nobody can explain. Rachel is left standing there wondering if she'd been dumped by a cosmic firebird. Despite losing the Phoenix, Rachel keeps fighting. She helps rescue Lilandra and restore her to the Shi'ar throne for about 5 minutes. Ultimately, almost immediately, the Shi'ar Death Commandos attack again. During the chaos, Lilandra is assassinated by Razor, a member of the Fraternity of Raptors. Rachel helps Gladiator kill, or at least apparently kill, the Death Commandos and Black Cloak, one of the people responsible for murdering the Grey family. But afterward, she didn't feel any better. Revenge doesn't bring her peace. After Lilandra's funeral and Gladiator's reluctant coronation as the Emperor, Rachel, Corvus, Havoc, and Polaris leave the Starjammers behind. Eventually, Rachel returns to Earth alongside Wolverine when Cyclops opens the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. She also helps during the Avengers vs. X-Men conflict by intentionally feeding Avengers bad information about Hope Summers' location, while Hope is manifesting the Phoenix Force. Basically, Rachel becomes the world's most helpful source of misinformation. After the conflict, she stays at the school where she unexpectedly starts dating John Sublime, because comic books enjoy pairing people you absolutely did not see coming. Rachel soon joins Storm, Psylocke, Jubilee, M, Karima Shapender, and several other X-women against Archaea, a sentient technovirus determined to wipe out all of life. With help from an all-star villain lineup that includes Enchantress, Typhoid Mary, Selene, and Lady Deathstrike. Because if you're ending the world, you might as well invite everyone. Rachel survives, only to run into Madeline Pryor, who promptly beats her in a battle. Rachel's batting average against clones of Jean Grey continues to be surprisingly inconsistent. Later, while hunting Deathbird, Rachel tracks down Deketh, one of the people directly responsible for slaughtering the Grey family. She could have taken him out. Instead, Rachel psychically forces him to experience the memories of the massacre he helped create. Sometimes emotional damage is more effective than revenge. Following Cyclops' apparent death from the Terrigen mists, Rachel leaves the X-Men to grieve. Magneto eventually convinces her to join his team to protect mutant kind, but Rachel quickly realizes Magneto is still Magneto. She leaves after deciding she can't trust him. During the X-Men and Humans conflict, Rachel helps Sabretooth rescue innocent Inhuman civilians. Meanwhile, the serial killer they're chasing turns out to be M, who is Monet St. Croix, or Monet St. Croix, I'll never know how to say her last name, who has been possessed by her brother Emplate, because absolutely nothing in the X-Men can ever be straightforward. Rachel eventually rejoins the X-Men under the codename Prestige. During a battle against a Sentinel called Alpha, she's knocked unconscious. While unconscious, Rachel realizes two important things. First, she's been subconsciously holding herself back because she's afraid of the full extent of her powers. Second, Nightcrawler definitely has feelings for her. Rachel decides to stop limiting herself, unleashes her full potential, defeats Alpha, and afterward confronts Kurt. The conversation goes surprisingly well. They become a short couple shortly after, and it was honestly one of Rachel's healthier romantic relationships at least. Then trauma comes back, because it always does. As Rachel's powers continue growing, long-buried memories of her time as one of Ahab's hounds begins resurfacing. During a fight against Negative Zone aliens, Rachel is critically injured and falls into a coma. When she wakes up, the hound markings on her face have mysteriously returned. Turns out Mesmero is responsible. He forces Rachel back into her old role as a mutant hunter, effectively trying to turn her into Ahab's hounds all over again. Thankfully, the time-displaced younger Cyclops breaks Mesmero's control before Rachel loses herself completely. Rachel is later reunited with a resurrected Jean Grey, but before the reunion can become even remotely normal, Cassandra Nova, the psychic evil twin of Charles Xavier, takes control of Rachel's mind. Rachel and Jean are forced to fight each other until Rachel finally breaks free of Cassandra's control. Jean then works out a psychic solution that frees Rachel completely. Unfortunately, Ahab eventually returns to the present. Again. He brainwashes the X-Men into becoming hounds, including Rachel. Cable and the remaining X-Men travel through time to stop him. Rachel eventually breaks free, but chooses to leave the team anyway because she's still struggling with everything Ahab forced her to become. Things get even stranger when Strife captures Rachel. Luckily, she's rescued by herself. Specifically, Mother Ascani, Rachel's older alternative self from the future. Time travel remains wonderfully uncomplicated. Freed at last, Rachel nearly kills a younger Strife before Cable talks her down, reminding her that Strife's memories will eventually be erased to preserve the timeline. Rachel reluctantly stands down and returns home with Cable. When the mutant nation of Krakoa is finally established, Rachel happily joins her fellow mutants. She moves into the Summer family home on the blue area of the moon because normal neighborhoods are apparently beneath the Summers family now, and becomes both an X-Man and a member of X-Factor investigations. Later, Rachel joins Betsy Braddock, now Captain Britain, and the Knights of X on a quest to recover the legendary Seas Perilous, often called the Holy Grail of mutant kind. Along the way, they battle the anti-mutant tyrant Merlin, King Arthur, and an army of Furies determined to wipe out the witch breed across Otherworld. During the adventure, Rachel reaches out psychically to locate their ally Shogo, and instead experiences a vision from Geraldine, an informant of the Crooked Market. Geraldine calls Rachel a Scani, reminding her that she's the guardian of the time stream and warning her that the timelines and someone important needs her. Rachel assumes Geraldine is talking about Betsy. She rushes to save her teammates who are trapped inside a powerful illusion. After freeing Betsy, the two finally kiss. Turns out that dimension hopping and reality saving had been building towards a romance after all. As a Scani, Rachel continues helping Betsy rebuild Captain Britain's reputation while battling Morgan Le Fay. And then, tired of waiting for Morgan's next move, Rachel fully embraces her chrono-skimming powers, the ability to see into the recent history, recognize people from alternate realities, and peer across the branching timelines. At this point, Rachel is officially gone from time-traveling mutant with trauma to literal guardian of the time stream. And considering everything she survived, I'd say she's earned the promotion. So we saw her recently in the comics after the From the Ashes era took off, and she was in X-Force with Forge, Betsy, Sage. It was okay. It was an okay run. It got canceled. But yeah, so that is Rachel Summers. Her history in the comics is bananas. There's so much happens. There's never time to chill for her. And that's why this episode is so damn long. So thank you for holding on through all of that. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you like and subscribe, and I hope you have a marvelous day.